So here is the review for my 16.3 coaching. So here is the lesson plan, including the aims and objectives of what I wanted to achieve, how I was going to do the warm-up, the main activity, which there was two of, the catching and fielding and the batting, and then also the condition game at the end, bringing it all together. Followed by the cool down and the preliminary kind of explanation of what we achieved and things like that, with the times that I had planned for these to run over. Here is also my risk assessment, showing what kind of factors there were that might need addressing. So the pre-existing injuries that were already there, which would affect the participants. So some of them would not be able to take part. I had one guy who had his ankle previously playing football, so we had to take into consideration this and change some of the activities slightly. Other things like jewellery, they were advised to take off their jewellery, so this then couldn't be a problem. And other things like being hit with a bat was a potential risk, so we put in conditions in place so they had to stand behind a certain place so they wouldn't have been able to get hit. So the aim of the session was for participants to improve their rounders' knowledge and technique in all aspects of the game, which was achieved because even though majority of the participants had played rounders before, it allowed them to learn new parts of it, so actual better technique rather than just playing the game. And the objective was for everyone to be able to play a conditioned version of the game, and this was achieved because this is what we did at the end and everyone was successful. So here is some of the strengths. So in the planning, I believe one of the strengths is having progressive aspects, so knowing that if they could bear in mind that we were unknown of their ability, it allowed for us to improve and make things harder, but also to make it easier for some of them that found it more difficult. And also we had coaching points in place that we were going to include throughout. These were given at the beginning of the session, and in the preliminary they had to feed these back to us. Organisation was also, I believe, a strength because the drills, we knew where they were all going to go, so I knew that one drill was going to be in a certain place, so I wasn't being distracted in between and reducing their time to do the session. The delivery, we had a good introduction, the participants understood what they were going to be doing, and we understood where we were in basis of what they understood. We also got involved in the drills, so when I was coaching, I was giving demonstrations. If someone didn't quite understand the technique, I then showed them so they could understand it fully. And also gave encouragement to them, so when they started to flag and not want to participate as much because they were losing or something, I gave them much more encouragement, and there was the enjoyment again to carry on. However, some of the weaknesses were my dynamics around the group, so at what point during the catching session I was stood focused with one guy, trying to help him due to the fact that he had a lower ability, which then meant that some of the participants didn't get as much assistance, and also the moving around kind of in between the groups of people, so a bit like the dynamics, some were more specific than the others. During the delivery there was a lack of movements by the participants at some points, so because we had people in pairs, so once one of them was batting, the other one would field, but they were stood still whilst the other one was doing the other thing, so this meant that the participants were stood still for a little while. So the opportunities I have, which I could use to be able to improve now, is is to help me with the planning of the session, but also the delivery, so I could take part in a first aid course, just so I felt more confident about some of the drills, so that if an injury did arise, that I would be able to sort it. I could do a level 1 coaching award, so specific in rounders, to be able to have more knowledge to teach them, and therefore they'd get more out of it. I could do a leadership award or leadership academy, so working with people who have taken part in high level coaches and learn from experience from them. I could also do a sports leadership, so a more broader kind of coaching award, allowing me to understand how it's best to look after students and how to put them in groups and how they work well together. However, there are some threats which arise stopping me from getting to these opportunities, such as the cost of these. So the cost of doing a first aid course can be anything from £15 to £40, which would then affect my ability to do this. The planning, so the time I had available to plan wasn't great. So the time I could have could be changed, but also the time for some of these opportunities I may struggle with, so having to be at a course 3 days a week over a week, I would struggle with due to other commitments. And also the location of these, because there aren't many locally, I'd have to travel, which therefore takes up time and would make it less accessible to me. So 3 of the strengths. So the progressive parts of the session, which I believed was a strength, the reasons behind this is because it allowed the participants to learn the basics and then allow them to become better. So they started off with what they already knew, then we gave them some technique to work with, and then overall they became much better. But this also allowed the participants who had played before and had more experience to then be able to get better and to improve on more so than the people that didn't know what they were doing necessarily. So the people with lower experience got to learn the basics, but the participants that already knew the basics were able to progress themselves. Another thing was having equipment set up and prepared. So this meant when the participants came out, and 3/4 of them had played recently, so knew a few of the rules and a few of the different ideas, they could use a rounders bat, because during their lesson they had used a tennis racket, so they worked with the rounders bat, increasing their skill. However, the rest of them did use a tennis racket due to the fact that they hadn't played before. This meant that we could go from drill to drill, having all the different equipment out meant that we could adapt really quickly. So we had cones placed ready for the next drill, even though these weren't in the way of what we were doing at the moment. This meant we could give demonstrations quickly and participants weren't getting bored. Getting involved in the drill was another strength. So due to the odd number I was given, I joined in, which meant that extra motivation was given because they were working alongside me. But also at some points I wasn't needed and I gave demonstrations instead. So here's one of my weaknesses. So I believe that my movement around the group wasn't as good as it could have been. So more time during the session was focused on certain participants. So I had one child who struggled with his behaviour, and when he believed that he wasn't doing well, he started to get angry and didn't want to join in. So for me, I didn't really know how to handle this apart from give him praise for everything he did do well. My plan is for developing this is to go and mentor a coach. watching how behaviour is dealt with. So over a 6-week period during the summer, taking part in one session a week, I would take part in a summer camp, which holds many challenging behavioural children, and gaining advice from these coaches, not only what they think, but them I taking over and them seeing what I do well and what I don't. This would then allow for me to improve for next time. So another area for improvement was the participants' interaction. So the participants were not always moving due to the dynamics of the drill. We had one fielding and one waiting for their go. So this meant that they weren't always interacting, but they were still always involved. So to develop this, I could take part in a higher level sports leadership and take part on this course over a certain period of time during the summer, learning how to do new drills, maybe not specific to rounders, but having the ability to create drills and to the way to split people up so everyone is taking part at all times. Also the ability to maybe have more than one drill going at a time, so I could have had the fielding and the batting drill at the same time, allowing for the participants not to be waiting around as much because there wouldn't be as many of them. So the third area for improvement could be my technical knowledge. So due to not knowing a great deal about rounders, it was difficult to give specific teaching points. So I knew the basics of how to hold the bat and the basics of the rules. However, to be able to give them more technical advice, I would need to possibly do a level 1 qualification. However, the difficulty in this is rounders is not always easy to access coaching award, so the location of this may be quite far away, and also the cost is reasonably high, but it takes place over a long period of time, so I would struggle to be able to do this with other commitments.